folks, and welcome to another Sunday morning Samoflange. I'm Matt.
I'm Benjamin.
And we're going to talk about our pet peeves.
Shut up, I hate this.
It's one of my pet peeves. You know what one of my pet peeves is, though?
Already annoying me.
One of my pet peeves is not having Kim come to the podcast. That's one of my pet peeves.
Do you think she's going to listen to this and be distraught?
I don't know. I asked her if she wanted to be a part
I know,
of it.
and Kim had a beach vacation this past weekend.
She did.
And bought a book called Beach Read, I believe it was.
Beach Read?
Beach Read, yes.
Oh.
And it's I thought it was so geniusly and cleverly marketed because I think it's called Beach Read or Beach Book or something to that effect.
Right.
And it's painted yellow and blue on the cover, and
okay.
So the sand
like
and
a
ocean,
beach.
right. And when I saw the picture of it, it made me think how many of those pictures that girls take of their legs at the beach, while they're reading.
While they're reading the book, yeah.
Right. How many of those pictures were inspired by this
beach book
and how the author feels about that. Like, that must be amazing, a cool feeling to know that you are filling up Facebook with a picture that everyone else is envious of because of your book.
Because your beach book.
The bonus was that she said the book was actually pretty good. So she's finishing that right now over coming here to record this podcast with you, and I'm just the messenger.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Just wish that beach would come to me.
It's getting
and
there.
Kim.
Yeah, yes,
Kim.
of course.
I'm going to the beach later on this summer.
But she had a good time and was relaxed and happy when she
Good.
came back, so maybe she'll come to the next one.
Okay, maybe so.
Hopefully.
Okay. What's your number 5? I'm kidding. My number 5.
Go for it. You know, one thing I thought was interesting, we talked about this is top 5 pet peeves, right?
Yes, pet peeves.
Which in America, at least, and in English in general, that is the phrase. You know, you don't say this. You typically don't say this peeves me. Just
no, you don't.
By itself, it's a pet peeve. Do you know the difference between a peeve and a pet peeve?
No, tell me.
From what I've read,
okay.
Typically a pet peeve is the one that it's a peeve that you cannot resist talking about when it happens, or you cannot resist mentioning it, or you basically take care of it as if it were a pet. So you feed it every time it comes up, and you nurture that peeve so that it continues to live on forever.
That's about right, because I complain about these constantly.
Are these your top 5?
I do complain about
pet
these a lot.
peeves in that case?
I do complain about these, yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think that's a good definition.
Okay. No,
Because-
it made me think about it, because there's a lot of things that annoy the crap out of me, but I just don't bother with saying anything anymore.
Well, I don't say it out loud, but I'll
Right, I
say
may
it
not say it
definitely
loud
after it's
or-
over to other people.
Yeah, or in your mind, you'll be like, oh, for crying out loud, what's
Yeah.
happening with this guy? Or something like that. Okay.
Like my number 5.
Which is?
Not paying attention.
What do you mean?
No,
What are we talking about?
there's someone in my gaming group, but I go over the rules. I used to go over the rules with him, and he's always on his phone.
Oh, no.
Or doing something else, and he never pays attention. And then later on in the middle of the game, he goes, well, wish someone had told me that. He does, and like he's all offended that I hid something from him so that I could have the advantage. I was like, dude,
You know, to back
I
up
told you.
really
But
quickly,
now, to
though,
be fair-
I wanted to ask you about crossover before we get any farther. Do you think that there will be any crossover? Now, this is from every possible pet peeve in the world.
yes, one.
You think we will have one? Because there are
Yes.
some very common ones.
There are some common ones. I'm going to say 1.
Because I had said 1. I'm going to go ahead and go high then.
Okay, go
There are some
2.
very
It
common
could be
ones.
2.
It could be. But anyway, so
right.
so he doesn't pay attention when you're...
No.
And you do a very good job explaining
And
the
I'll
rules. Like,
explain
I've
the
been to a
rules.
lot of board game nights,
Yeah.
and you are a professional at explaining the rules to
I've
people.
done it
Like,
a few
you
times.
do it a few times at work,
and-
all the time, and you're very good at it.
I want everyone to understand the goal of the game, what you can and can't do, and so on and so forth. And anyone who wants to ask questions and reminders, and yeah, I'm glad to give them. And now, thankfully, this guy, well, he's now married, but he had his girlfriend would come over, and when we were playing the game, he's like, well, I wish someone had told me that. And his girlfriend goes, he did. He told us at the very beginning.
You finally
and it's
got
almost like I'm
somebody-
being vindicated now,
Yeah,
because he
yeah.
just kind of looks at her like bothered, like, what? Yeah, that's because he never pays attention. That's not just him.
But you mean
It's
someone
just
finally...
people in general just not paying attention.
said it
you know?
aloud for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, aggravating
justified.
me so much. But, like I said, I have all these as my top 5. That's my least pet peeve.
Of course.
So I don't complain as much. But anyway, what's your number 5?
Well, I had 8. I was just telling you.
Oh, please go ahead and do your honorable
so
mentions.
So I just had a few honorable mentions. One of the ones that I thought about was when people have what I call, it's called a California accent. And when I lived in Oregon, I got really annoyed. And you could always tell when people came from California because they ended every sentence in a question mark. And I didn't understand how that could be done. And they have a weird pacing and rhythm and cadence all to itself.
Would you like some Chinese food?
It's really weird. And how they draw out the end of their sentences.
I'm going to sit down in this chair?
Yeah, in this chair. Most of them go up at the end, and it's really weird. And then they get really emphatic, and they talk about their feelings a lot. And
I'm Ron Burgundy?
Yeah, and I don't understand the breathiness of it. So
strange.
it's weird, and I love accents. I don't
know that many Californians, I guess.
Well,
I don't talk to many.
This is an honorable mention only because a lot of people don't hear and listen to articulation and enunciation the way I do.
Right.
I hear it a lot. I love different cadences of accents and things.
Right.
And I think what a lot of professional actors get tripped up by is that there are just certain words like pet peeve. It's always said a certain way in English with a certain rhythm and a certain cadence, which is very, very hard to do unless you've grown up hearing it all your life. And so if you're Australian or British, there's a whole different rhythm to phrases down there. Even things that we say that are exactly the same, the rhythm is off. And that's what catches a lot of professional actors. So I hear it more than most, and that's why it's just an honorable mention.
I find accents interesting when I hear
Fascinating.
them. Because you talk about up there in the Northwest, pop is what they call
the soda Coke argument.
Would you like some pop? I'm like, some what? Some pop?
Some pop.
Pop. And I'm like, some what? Say that again. And I mean, people they joke on me too, but I was like, I don't know, man, calling it pop and then just kind of doing it with a straight face. Bravo. Bravo. But go ahead. I'm sorry. What's your next
stuff like that's regional? And fun.
Yeah.
So California accent. Second honorable mention was flashlights in the camera during a TV show or a movie. Drives me absolutely insane because I do not need.
Oh wow, is that still done today?
Yeah, very much.
Really?
Yeah.
It used to be back in the day.
Did it a lot. The X-Files back in the 90s.
Okay.
There were, you're out and solving a murder mystery with Mulder and Scully, and then every single night scene, I have to just squint because I know that they're going to shine that light right at the camera. And I feel like that's something that Chris
do they
Carter,
still do that now?
I feel like there are shows that do that anytime that they're out in the woods with a flashlight.
To be fair, I don't watch as many, so yeah.
Well, I prepare myself for it every time because it seems like I don't get why directors started telling actors to shine the light into the camera because I get it. It gives you a sense of
being there,
and
some depth to the situation.
Right. But anytime that happens, I squint and I just wait for it to be over with. And like one of my favorite TV shows of all time is Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. And they do it constantly, and it drives me insane. If that's the only one criticism I have of that show is that every time a flashlight is on at the screen, it's in my eyes.
All right, the last honorable mention.
The last honorable mention is getting text messages one sentence at a time, and then getting another one, and then getting another one, and the constant barrage of just looking down and seeing.
I'm going to replace my number 5.
I
forgot about that.
20 text messages when one would have sufficed.
No. This one. Guess what?
And then shut up.
And then they're waiting because you got to say what.
No, I do not.
Yeah, or they're not going to say anything. They're waiting for you to say what.
Look, I know.
So that you can respond. They can respond back. There's no. Oh man, yeah.
If anyone texts me and says, "Guess what?" and asks and waits for me to reply, our friendship is over. Because I will never reply to that.
People do that.
Or I will just ignore it completely. And if they say, "Guess what?" I will wait a day or two and then send them a meme about something else completely unrelated.
So guess what I found at the store? I'm still waiting for you to text me.
Don't even care. I'm not going to say what. I'll say that to people. If they say it to me in person, I'll say, "Guess what?"
Well, yeah, but that's different. But I'm the same way.
No, even then, I will be like,
they're trying to hold a conversation with you.
Are you waiting for me to say what? Are you going to make me say what?
See, I knew I'd forget some stuff here, and that one trumps the other one I have.
That trumps your number 5?
Yeah, that trumps my number 5 easily because that bothers me.
So people who are not succinct with their messaging of any kind, really. Not necessarily succinct, but
That's a good
it's
one.
the drawing it out. When I have a couple of friends who just text me one thought at a time when it could have all been. It all flows into the same idea, but it's one thought comes at a time every time, and that's just
Shoot, or
heartbreaking.
what the kids call ghosting. You ask a question, you need a response back,
So-
but they never even respond back. You ask them if they are available for tomorrow night or whatever, and they never respond back. And then later on, I just go ahead and say, okay, well, we're just not going to schedule. Oh, I forgot to text. Yeah, I can come tonight. Well, then you need to tell me ahead of
Are
time.
we texting about? Are we talking about texting in general now?
Texting in general
Okay,
now.
okay,
Well, I'm just thinking now, those probably be bigger pet
They are
peeves.
nowadays. They're a bigger deal.
See, I knew I'd forget something
because
when
there's a
making this
whole
list.
new etiquette of messaging when it comes to things like that.
And that's a good catch.
I guess one of mine when it's specifically related to texting is when people give me that crap about, oh, I'm sorry, I just saw this message.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You saw it because everybody poops with the phone in the hand, and you saw it full well. You just didn't know what to say, and that's okay. You don't have to qualify a late message with, sorry, I just saw this. We all know you saw it. It doesn't matter.
Is that your number 5?
No.
Holy cow! So one of your honorable
we
mentions, I
divulged
would love.
into texting.
Wow, what is your number 5 then?
That was my third honorable
I was
mention,
going to say
right?
that's a good pick, but it's
Yeah.
not your number 5. So I'm interested now. What did make the list?
Queso is my number 5.
I don't even know where this is going.
You
but
do.
I am intrigued.
You do. And I mentioned it during our interview with Tyler Rubaker. At the end, I got really excited, and I was really excited and talked way too much through that whole time with him here. At the end, I said, okay, so tell me more about this voice that you have or do and everything else. And I hate that so much.
See, when you say queso, I'm thinking about the cheese dip.
That's what I think about every single time I hear K, comma, so, period, which is a completely unnecessary preamble that people put into a thought. It's a nervous habit.
It's like a noise word.
It's a noise word like but.
You have
and
yeah. You know. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Mhm. All right.
Right. I knew someone in one of our a trainer who would always say, "Okay, y'all." And that was something she'd say. Okay, y'all, we're going to go into this next page. Okay, y'all? Okay, y'all.
No.
And she said a lot. And
That's what I mean.
I was auditing the class, and afterwards she asked, hey, do you have any notes for me? I said, just one. I said, do you know you have a noise word? She went, oh, what is it? I said, you say okay, y'all a lot. And she looked at me and went, no, I don't. Like that, you really can't hear you're saying it. So a lot of these queso people, they don't realize they're doing it that much. I'll be honest, when I look over
That is absolutely true.
when I look over my board game reviews, I get irritated because sometimes I'll say, what is the word? And the next thing you're going to do, and the next, or something. There's something
you repeat?
something I repeat when I'm following steps. So the next thing you want to look at. So the next step. So in the next phase, or whatever, I can't. Now you got queso in my head, but that's not what I would say. It was something else, and I was like, did I say that again? Come on. But when I'm giving instructions,
So are you upset because you're not varying it any?
Yeah, I'm very upset when I'm not varying it any, because when I'm editing the video, I realize that I'm doing it. Like after every,
Of course.
step in the instruction, I'm saying the next step. So the next thing you should do, maybe it's I don't know. I can't remember.
But
now,
it's not
you got queso in my you got queso in my head.
Right.
So it's something like that. But I'm like, did I say it again?
No, I totally agree with you. I have some habits like that I've worked really hard to try to break, and a lot of people do without realizing it. So it's not a pet peeve that I articulate to anyone else, because I cannot fault anyone for it except for professionally paid speakers. And this feeds into the rest of what I'd put for my number 5 was I just refunded. I got refunds on 2 separate books from Audible books this week. Oh my word! Because I just finished the excellent rendition of the Thrawn trilogy, Star Wars' Thrawn trilogy,
Last Command.
and narrated by Mark Thompson. Oh my word! He spoiled me so much, because the next one I got was
I hear they're good.
clearly catered towards young adults, and the second one is this guy over articulates every word and doesn't read the book to you. He doesn't enact any of it. He just reads it to you.
I should mention to Star Wars fans who listen to my channel and listen to this podcast, he's talking about Lost Stars, the new canon novel.
Oh, yes. It was Lost Stars. I couldn't get through the first chapter.
I think that's what it was called, right? Lost Stars?
Yes, I believe so.
That's what you told me. Because you asked me what I thought about it, and I was like, that's a new canon novel. I've never read it.
Right.
I do hear people say that's one of the better ones in the new canon.
Outstanding, 5 stars, excellent, whatever. And as I was listening to the kid read it, I kept thinking to myself, I need to read this myself in my own head voice and not his voice, because it's just driving me insane.
And now that's interesting.
What is?
Are we getting into another pet peeve here?
It's all kind of the same. It's bad microphone etiquette with queso and the filler words, as well as people who are just generally unaware and have no awareness of the way they're recording something.
I will say this on our other podcast, Prince of the Universe, we were doing audiobooks. Well, I was listening to an audiobook because I don't listen to them that much.
I'm sorry, and I only hold that standard to professionals, to paid professionals. Anyone else, forget it.
Got it.
These people were paid money to put the...
And
this is Star Wars.
They did a subpar job.
I don't
below par.
Maybe it was Disney telling them to do it that way, which is very possible.
Yeah, so we don't care anyway. So
I don't care. So they were just both bad. But anyway.
No... sorry,
I apologize.
No, it's fine. So if it was important, I would have repeated it, but I don't care.
Okay, so
it's just one of those things. Oh yeah, Prince of the Universe. We were listening to the audio version. I don't listen to audiobooks that much. Some people I do like reading. Some people do a terrible job, and well, I'll go back even further. If anyone remembers who listens to both podcasts, which I think there's a few people. There's like 7 people who do that maybe. On Wheel of Time, I mentioned that there's a husband-wife team-up. They each take a chapter. But they really should have just shared characters. Because whenever she did a male character...
Oh, no.
It was like your mom going... Hey, Batman, what are we gonna do today?
Be kidding me.
She did a terrible man's voice. And now he did an okay women's voice, but the thing is, though, if they're gonna read it together, then just split the parts.
That's
what they should have done.
Seems logical.
But every time she's like, this is so-and-so.
It was just so...
It was like she's mocking.
Off-putting.
This is how a man talks. I'm a man. Look at me. And that's basically how it sounded. I was like,
but
I can't get into that. But it takes you out of the
book, right?
It takes me completely out of the book. And I said, every time she reads, and the thing is, though, if she reads the women's part, she's great. But then when she goes to the man, it feels like she's making fun of the story. It's like, and then he says, I'm a stupid guy. It's almost like that's what she's saying.
Wow.
Because the male voice is so unbelievably bad, it just takes me completely out of it.
That's
and then
too
there
bad.
was other books too but I can see that point.
Well, I mean, I've heard very, very good renditions of one author or one narrator doing male and female voices. Like there's no... It's not impossible, because Mark Thompson just did it. He was doing Mara Jade and Luke Skywalker in the same paragraph, and it was clearly distinguishable and great.
Yeah.
And... who's the gal who does the Honor Harrington series? Have you ever read the Honor Harrington?
I haven't.
The Honorverse? Incredible books. She did a phenomenal job with all the male voices, and you knew by the end of the series who exactly was who based on the way her inflection
I know
was.
that our Choose Our Own Adventure author I emailed never responded.
Oh, that's too bad.
How dare you, lady?
How
dare you?
Look, I was only reading it for the first time as we were reading it on the air.
I didn't even get to practice. First novels you ever made, so you should say thank you. I've written better now.
Well, like we probably said, it was probably Bantam that got all the money, and she's like, oh well, forget it.
Screw it.
Gave her $50 or something like that.
Bunch of guys got drunk one night and sent me this email. Choose your own adventure, like they're reading it still. My number 4 is people taking forever. This is I need to clarify. This is basically on the road. There's a speed limit. I don't know why people go but I mean, we're talking like 15, 20 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour zone. And I'm like, there's no one in front of you. What are you waiting for? Now, most likely, I'll be honest, there's a lot of people in Louisiana who drive without a driver's license.
That's
they
true.
have a state ID. I've seen people give their state ID and then hop in their car.
Ooh.
And drive away.
You mean at the bank or something
ID.
like that? Yeah.
At the bank, it happened all the time. People came to cash in their checks, and they had to give us some form of ID through the drive-through, and it was the state ID instead of a driver's license.
Right.
And they were driving. And I was like, hey, can we call a cop to start busting these people? They said, no, we can't, because that's customer information. We can't leak anything out to them. but they're breaking the law.
Yes.
At that point was my joke. And I was shocked. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised. There's a ton of people who drive.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because that way you don't have to buy insurance and everything.
Right.
So there are basically tons of uninsured drivers out there who don't, I'm not saying you need driver's ed, but you need to be at least checked for, stupidity a little bit, which is what some of these people are done. But no, they just walk around their state IDs.
If only.
And that way, but some of them are those people who go really slow because they don't want to be pulled over.
I mean, that makes sense.
It makes sense too, but at the same time, obey the speed limits, people. It happens on the highway too. People are going really slow.
This is a good point, though. Like,
I complain openly about that all the time.
Obey the speed limits, which means
I don't care if they go above it.
That's exactly it's
maybe
a speed limit.
It's not meeting the speed limit.
Right.
It's going
and the only
well
place
below.
you see a minimum required is like on the interstate. It says minimum required speed of 40.
It's 50, 40? I think. But either way, they'll definitely do that one. But that still bothers me.
Yeah.
Because not everyone has that minimum speed sign posted.
No, you're right.
In Monroe, they do. But
yes,
in every other place, they don't. You don't see that anymore.
Right. Well, I found out
people have common sense. They know they should obey. Just go at least that speed. I mean, at the very least, I'm always going the speed limit.
It's not a speed recommendation.
Because as you know,
speed limit.
It's the speed limit.
Right.
But the thing is, though, not to go above 1 mile above the speed limit in Mississippi because those state troopers are bleep holes. They'll pull you over for anything. So
Sounds
you
like
go
some tickets in your
at the
past.
speed limit. Well, no, I've never been given. Hold on. Where was that located? No, that was in Louisiana.
I see.
Given that ticket. So I've never been given a ticket in Mississippi.
Well, in my moving around the country a lot, I found out that Louisiana is a very litigious state, which means that people get sued a lot, and that they just changed the rules on it this past election a little bit more, but that's a boring topic. And that Orleans Parish, where the city of New Orleans is the most expensive county/parish in the United States of America to have car insurance. Did you know that? So quite literally, State Farm can tell, because everybody says, "Oh, the drivers here are terrible." The drivers in X city are the worst.
Bad to have insurance,
right? No, absolutely, because of the state litigiousness of it all.
Yeah.
But when people say, "Oh, the drivers in Dallas are just terrible," or "The drivers in Oregon are terrible," whatever. Nope. It's statistically proven that the driving in Orleans Parish in New Orleans, they are the worst. And that's why
by far
car insurance is so outrageously expensive down there.
It is very expensive here. But, okay, so what's your number 4?
Let's see, what is my number 4?
What is number 4?
Reopen my phone here. This is something that is unique to very tall people. So I don't think a lot of people will get this one. This certainly isn't a crossover. Maybe not.
I will.
But
it's not a crossover.
But you are tall. You are 6'3", 6'4".
Just under a hair under 6'3".
So Superman's height.
6'2" and 3/4.
Perfect. So I'm 6'6", which is above the average of the typical American male, and every pair of jeans and t-shirts that I buy will prove that I have
to wear X large.
Yeah, I have to crouch down in every car I'm in to see the red lights, and everything is just. And extra large is always a little bit too blocky, but I'm a thin dude,
me too.
Just am too lanky for a lot of stuff. So
yeah,
being 6'6", I try to stand up straight. Bottom line is that, and I will do that, and at the grocery store, at a convenience store, this happened to me just yesterday at the convenience store, anywhere I'm standing in line in public, if people don't see me before they round the corner or before they look up from whatever they're purchasing or such, it happens so frequently that I had to ask, like Brad, who's 6'8", and a few other really tall friends I have, does this happen to you? Because it's so odd that it does. And people will very frequently see me and almost apologize and kind of cower away just because I'm much taller than people expect. No, and this happens because people just a towering figure who's so head and shoulders over everyone else that is around you. It just startles people very frequently.
And maybe it's because I'm a tall person, because it's odd. Because the first time I saw Brad, I wanted to hug him.
And that's a part of it too. I think no, I'm serious. It's very I'm very serious because you have these weird sensations around very tall people. You're like, I want to hug you. You're really tall. Take me on a piggyback ride.
Doesn't want to
You're a
hug
perfect
Brad,
stranger though, and everything else. So there are just weird. If anyone listening to this is a very tall person, I really want to know if this happens to you too. But I've confirmed this with a few other really tall people. Like, it happens all the time, and it's so inwardly annoying because people just apologize constantly. Like, you know when you're maybe looking at something at the grocery store and people pass in front of you and they may say, excuse me, or whatever. But take that experience and then include like a little bit of a head bow and almost like a humble, like, oh, don't crush me, giant person. Yeah.
I was kidding about Brad because Brad's a former LSU football player, big linebacker guy. I mean, huge dude.
6'8", 335, I think he is right now.
I mean, and if you don't know him, he could look intimidating.
He could.
If you do know him,
he does not.
You want to give him a hug.
That's right, yes.
Because he's a very kind person. He's a very nice person. He's a very jolly. He's a jolly green giant.
We should have Brad on the podcast.
I would love to have Brad on this podcast. Absolutely. Absolutely. Love that man. My wife, first time meeting him, goes, "Why I like him? He's nice." I said, Yeah. Looks a little intimidating, though, when he comes in. And I can see that with tall people.
And Brad and I have this experience. We had this conversation where we're just like, move along, little one. Coming on.
I thought what you were going to say was jackets and long sleeve shirts never come up to the cuff.
I've accepted that since I was 16.
It feels like I'm wearing a baseball jersey because even though it's for long, tall people, they never get the sleeves right.
No, anything made for big and tall is just made for big. There is no big and tall.
Not tall.
It's just big.
You're right. You're right. It's like triple X large.
A lot of the clothes that I have to. If I want to look really nice doing something, it has to be custom fitted or tailored in some way to adjust to my lanky frame. I'm not complaining about that because if I made clothes for a living and most Americans in this country of all 300 million people are such and such size to this size, then that's what I'm going to make my jeans for, that group. But whatever. It's no big. That doesn't bother me. I've been this tall since I was 16, so I'm used to that. But
did Taylor Walker-Nico bow before you when she saw you? Because she's very short.
No, I'm not saying people bowed before me.
No, I'm just saying, did she cower? I
don't remember the first time Taylor and I met.
Or did she punch you straight in the kneecap?
That's probably more likely what happened. Just out of a nervous reaction, she's like, "Oh God, bam!" and punched me right. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if that happened.
You talk about other people we'd like to get on this podcast. I want Tyler on this podcast.
Tyler
Smith.
Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, that dude, I saw him the other day.
Yeah?
I love that dude. At the gym.
He's so fantastic.
He is a fantastic dude.
We should. I wonder what. We should invite him.
Absolutely. I would do it. I would do it. Let's look into it.
Next time we see him at the gym,
I really do love that
dude. We'll get him on there. Yeah.
Anyway, number 3 has to do with driving too, and this is where we start gritting our teeth that I don't like it. The lights on in the cabin of the car when you're driving.
Yes.
Especially at night. I don't like that when I'm driving on the highway.
You don't like it when it's your car or someone else's car?
Usually I'm the one driving when this happens. Oh. My co-pilot turns on the light. Yeah.
Okay.
And I can't stand it. I can't stand having the light on in the dark.
It's hard to see.
And it's hard to see, plus everyone else can see you, and that seems unfair that I can't see them. But the thing is, though, it's just so. No, it's nighttime. Just turn off the light. You don't.
So putting you in front of a two-way mirror would be the way to interrogate you, for sure.
When you've parked the car, turn on the light, look for whatever you need to look for. When you're in the middle of the highway, don't turn on the lights. Trying to drive, I got the headlights on. I can't see. Right. It bothers. It's like someone's just spitting in my ear until they finally turn it off. It's annoying.
I see.
To me.
So if someone's putting on their makeup, for instance. That would be just...
There's none of that going on. Usually it's just turn on the light to find something real quick, which turns into... Doesn't matter because 30 seconds feels like 30 minutes.
It does.
It does
Stuff
when that
like
light's
that,
on.
For sure. This is your number 3.
Yes, it's really aggravating. It's the first one I thought about, too.
Really?
It was the first one on my list that I thought about. I wrote it down. But then I said, no, it's really number 3 because I got a few more.
So that is an instant pet peeve. Like that comes to mind every time, no matter what.
Every time. Okay. Every time grading. So number 3 for you.
That's really interesting. This one, I rearranged these, but it's very similar. I had to rearrange these right before we recorded, but it's very similar to the one I just said, which is similar but different, which is people standing way too close and invading that personal bubble of mine that I have, which at first you would think, after what I just said, that people would give me more space. They do not. They seem to give less. I don't understand it at all. Maybe because my head is in the stratosphere.
I know one person like that who stands close. He always has to get in close, but he talks really loud too, which is the weird thing.
That is odd.
And I have one person I know that does that.
It's not necessarily.
So I don't experience as much as you.
It's not necessarily about friendships I have, and I'm not really thinking of anyone in particular.
Okay, just in general. But in general, it doesn't happen to me
because there are cultural differences. Like if in Japan, your personal bubble is smaller in Japan because everything is smaller in Japan. And you don't have the luxury of the space that we have to spread out here. And so that I could accept if that happened in Japan, but I'm not. This is the States, and I'm just so incredibly peeved by people who and here's
so what about in crowds?
Here's the cause of it.
In crowds, when you're shoulder to shoulder with people.
Crowd, I'm choosing to be in a crowd.
That is
different.
Fair.
If I'm at a concert, I know what I'm getting myself into.
Okay, all right. No,
and
go ahead.
It feeds into.
So you're just talking everyday encounters with people?
Yes.
Wow, really?
Because it comes from and stems from a thoughtlessness that isn't applied at all. It's just people standing in line. One of my favorite sociological studies that I've ever read was about these college students in New York City who did an experiment and just lined up. There were 10 college students, or they hired 10 people to just line up randomly at a door in New York City. There's nothing happening, just lined up. And every single time they did it, other people lined up. It didn't take it. They were counting. The experiment was how long would it take, as if this was a given thing that people were going to line up behind them, these paid actors, to do this. And so a lot of it is impulsive. That people, it's not, and they accounted for the fact maybe it's a tourist, maybe they think it's people,
right.
Something interesting is going on here, maybe there's a celebrity there. No, they controlled for all of that somehow. I forget how, but they just calculated that it's an instinctual sort of thing,
right.
That people line up for stuff and they just move forward when there's an empty space. It's similar to when you're at a red light and people start creeping forward, and then there's suddenly like, let's say you're the second or third car at the red light and the car in the front creeps forward and the light's clearly still red. It's right. So they're creeping forward to practically get into the intersection, right? I always hold my ground on purpose, and I don't just creep up along with them because I'm really curious, and I start looking behind me to see if the person behind me is like, are you going to go? Because there's a 10-foot space between the front car and my car.
I see what you're talking about.
And it's fascinating to me that people are like, move up, fill the gap. And that's what people do at the grocery store.
Right.
That's what people do in lines in general. They just fill the gaps and spaces. And that's not necessary at all. Just back it up. And, I've had people ask me, like, are you in line? And I look around and I'm like, I'm clearly, there's nowhere else for me to go.
Yeah.
There's no other reason for me to be standing here at all.
I'm just standing here
like
I'm
in between
ill.
two very tall aisles at the register with things in my hand.
Do you just look at him and say, cower before me, I'm taller than you?
Yeah. But in this particular instance, I'm thinking of, like, I laughed at the guy because I looked around first. It was so comical. I was like, I looked left, I looked right, and I thought, there's no other explanation for me standing here right now than being in line. Yeah, I am in line. And just that complete casual thoughtlessness about things like that makes me insane. Absolutely
That's
insane.
Fair. That's fair. All right, good one. I'm getting worried that we don't have any crossover.
We don't have any crossover yet.
Because I don't think number 2 is going to be Blaine for you, is it? I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. That's another guy I want on this podcast someday. Right. We're going to get him on too. He's out of school. Say what?
Oh, he's had school stuff.
He's had school stuff, and he's done though now. I spoke to him today. I got a fun story.
Good.
I got a fun story for him. I don't think I'm allowed to share this on the podcast though.
Oh. He's getting nervous right now.
He would probably share it on the podcast, but I don't. It's not
you
for
don't
me
want
to
steal
say.
that thunder, then.
No, I don't. I think it's hilarious though. Well, it was a great guy. I wish I had him on the podcast while we were talking about it. But anyway, it's high school drama. But number 2,
that's some of the best.
It's just great.
So much fun.
It's just great.
What would Cobra Kai be without it?
Nothing. My number 2, I realized that I talked about on this podcast.
You have or have not?
This one or Prince's. I've already talked about it before because I had a cough which is the one thing I hate most of all than anything in the world, because of course what I do for a living is
especially
train. So I can't be having coughing. I hate coughing. I'll take deep breaths to avoid coughing at times, and I'll suck down tons of hot tea and cough drops.
But why
I don't
do you
want to
hate
cough.
coughing so much?
I just do.
Does it hurt?
No, it interrupts my conversation.
Oh.
So for my work, it interrupts my work, and it annoys me because I know it can annoy others. Coughing fits can.
So like taking a deep breath and clearing your throat like you just did.
Well, yeah, but that's me just trying to avoid the cough, though. I mean, that's probably annoying too, but I'm just trying to avoid coughing because I just really cannot stand it.
How interesting.
Now, I did a podcast. It was either this one or Prince of the Universe where I had a cough, sucking down cough drops. I just had to record it on my own that night.
Yeah.
And I talked about how much I despised having a cough. It was the number one thing. See, if people who've been listening to the podcast probably know that, but it didn't make number one. I did say at the time, this is my number one pet peeve, I think, but it's not, because there's another one that just really irks me.
Do you feel like that the coughing is fairly unique? Have you ever heard anyone else complain about that?
No, it's not that my cough isn't.
No, it's just I've only ever met one person who's ever even mentioned that about themselves, their own cough, and it was because she was a voice teacher and there's a vocal coach, and so you aren't supposed to clear your throat really hard and cough really hard to save your professional vocal cords and everything not bouncing around down there. So you're supposed to be gentle to those things. So she would never clear her throat very hard. What you just did a second ago, she would never do that, and the cough really loud, like she would never do that. It's because it's a built-in instinct.
No, I understand that. Well, I understand that because you're trained that way.
But that's the only person that I can think of that's ever even.
But for me, because it interrupts my work.
But I think most people listening to this podcast, most people in general, would talk about the driving and the speed limit thing. Everybody's got a speed limit.
I don't think anyone would talk about coughs.
No, I'm just curious if you've heard anybody else do that. I don't think anybody else would talk about being tall and right.
Yeah, I don't think they
and
do
my
either,
particular ones.
But anyway, what's your number two?
I was wondering if this would happen if we would like unintentionally get a little bit upset while we were talking about these.
Oh, no.
Just because it... No. It's just because it...
Oh, yeah.
The annoyance
our pet peeves?
drifts into...
I mean, no, but I was annoyed on the podcast when I remember talking about it.
You're annoyed right now. Like, your body language is tense. Like
these were the ones that would, they just, really don't like it.
Top five.
Number one is really going to be bad. The number one trumps everything.
My number one... No, this is my number two.
Number two.
I apologize. Is unnecessary loud noises of any kind. So, trains, I don't know why they have to be that loud. Really. And we know that you're coming, and it's fine, and there's gates now.
Wow.
And I don't care what you have to do. There's no need to blow that whistle like that for that long, and it's just absolutely infuriating. But that's just the tip of the iceberg kind of thing. I used to work on a military base, a Marine Corps military base. Mm-hmm. Marines do everything at 2 volumes. They are completely silent, or they are way too loud at everything they're doing. And a guy that lives near me, this is the imaginary scenario I've come up with in my head, that they are going through a horrible divorce, and he does not want to see his wife when he picks up the kids. So he pulls into the driveway and just honks the horn for the children to come outside. But it's unnecessarily long. Like, clearly these kids are inside watching YouTube. It doesn't ever really take long for them to come outside. So they're there. They're ready. But my word, like within 2 seconds of driving up, that horn comes out, and I'm like, bruh, there are dozens of houses around here, and just the complete irreverence for
you honk the horn,
anyone else.
You're waking up everyone.
Everyone.
You're calling everyone.
And there's no established pattern for these honking
fits. You just go outside and go, what?
I know! I so badly want to do something
when you honk your horn, buddy, everyone hears it.
Yeah, we all hear it. People who chew way too loud. This is a big one. People who parents who do not turn down the volume on their children's devices, either a phone that's watching YouTube or a video game or something like that, like in a public place.
A toy.
If you toys sometimes have no volume. There is no
don't
giving
bring the talking
one or the
toy
other,
to
right?
the waiting room.
If you have a 2-year-old come in, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like 7, 8, 9
Okay, I
younger
got you,
kids
got you. Don't
who
say- you
have,
don't say turn it
they have
down.
their own phone or
I
whatever,
gotcha.
and they're watching the most inane cartoon ever made on
Like
their
a Minecraft video.
full volume Minecraft videos that are just absurd. And this typically happens when you're at a restaurant or something, when you're trying to get away from the YouTube videos, perhaps.
Gotcha.
So that sort of crazy noise in public is the thing. Like, that's just, I get it. I'm in public. I'm not in my own house. There's a reason I worked from home long before COVID ever forced us to work from home. I've been doing it for years prior to, on purpose. So I get it. When I'm in
Peaceful.
public, you got to have those fallibilities that happen. But it's just the complete lack of any caring. What am I looking for? People who just do not care at all about other people being in the area at all.
It's probably a lack of self-awareness. One, they just don't
Yeah,
realize
and-
what they're doing.
And there's a difference. Like I said earlier, I've moved all around the U.S. and I've lived in big cities before, and that's different. You act differently when you're
Right.
in a big city and there are people everywhere. And it's like
Right.
one of my favorite scenes from Crocodile Dundee. You remember that movie with Paul Hogan and such? He shows
This is
up
a
in New
knife.
York. He comes. You're on. This is a knife.
Yeah.
And he shows up in New York and he goes, "Hey, good day. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm whatever. Mick. I'm Mick." And he's like introducing himself to someone in New York City. And the guy's looking at him and shaking his hand and says, "Okay, yeah, hi, right, whatever. We're never going to see each other again." But he doesn't know that. He's from
Yeah.
tiny middle of nowhere, Australia.
So he thinks he's going to be
So it's
making new
different.
friends here.
So there's greetings in Louisiana, smaller population. We tend to have a better courtesy towards people we see.
Right.
Even if you know you're not going to talk to them again, there's still just a little bit more general awareness of it. In New York, it's accepted. Bigger cities, it's fine. You can just go do whatever. You're not going to talk to these people ever again. You can be as rude as hell as you want.
There you go.
It's just, but I think in any city or culture situation, that those things would bother me. People who deliberately modify their trucks to be really loud or, and make way too much noise. What's the point? I have never gotten a good answer to that. And anyone who does it, like, I have good friends who do it. I cannot get any kind of an answer from anyone who puts straight pipes on their truck to make noise just for the sake
For the
of
sole
making
reason
noise.
of making,
Just to
yeah.
make, I get it. If
Make a
you're
lot of
listening
noise.
to your favorite song and you have a really good stereo system, fine, bro, crank it up.
Okay, so adolescence annoys you. What else?
Maybe that's what it is. And adolescents
know,
and adults.
I totally understand where you're coming from there. So
Right.
I agree with that.
I give a free
Loud
pass to a
noises, yeah.
16-year-old, but you know what? I don't. Rick,
I don't
at all.
either, because it's totally stupid for the whole reason. That's the whole reason, so you can hear their truck.
But why? Why? But why is that the reason?
I don't know why there's a point.
What
to
is that? Were you just completely neglected? Are you the middle child? Like,
You-
what happened?
Demand attention from every neighborhood you pass through.
Is that it, or is it a cultural expectation that you're doing it because of, like cowboys, right?
I always like
and
to
I
say
don't mean
it's
to
a small
disparage. Whoa, well, I mean, that's getting into a different realm, a Freudian sort of realm.
I
But
tell you what.
but
anyway.
like cowboys, I grew up, singing nothing but country music, and I was only exposed to that for all of my youth, kind of thing. And I learned through observation that people dress the way they do, especially at rodeos and such, because everybody else is doing it, and that's fine. That's a peer pressure thing. That's that's a social norm. I don't see how peer pressure can make you want to make your vehicle loud, though, when you accelerate. I don't get that.
I
at
don't
all.
get that either. That makes zero sense to me.
Anything related to anything like that.
Okay.
Unnecessary
All right.
noise. It's just never going to help anybody.
And are you ready for our crossover?
Oh. At
This is
number
the one
one?
Yeah. I don't know if it's yours though now.
Really? I hope so. I can't believe we're going to have zero if not.
I hate slow internet. I don't think the internet will ever catch up to me. I hate that my computer. I'm faster than my computer. That shouldn't be the case. We're living in
don't have any crossover.
2021,
Right.
and we still have the same. We're living off internet from
That's
2009.
not true. Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
It's terrible. I mean,
Yes.
we haven't evolved as an internet culture here. We're stuck on one speed, and it's not blazing fast internet like they say. If it was blazing fast, it'd be like, oh dang it loaded that site really good. I mean, we're talking like a T3 connection is what we need to have every household. Until that time comes, it's never going to be fast enough for me. It's never going to be fast enough. I consistently sit there and go, what is the deal? Because what's going on is everyone else is on the internet as well in my neighborhood, and so everyone gets to slow it down.
Yeah.
And it's just annoying. It's annoying.
Wow. I'm
That
amazed.
we live so far with internet, but yet still it is at
Well, it's crucial to every
10
aspect
years-
of life now.
10 years ago speeds.
Yeah.
10 years ago speeds.
How spoiled we've become with things
And
like that.
I will admit we've become spoiled because it's much faster than dial-up. Yes,
Yeah.
we've advanced from 20
we
years
talked about
ago.
that during the 200th podcast when we saw that
But
evolve.
you look at the year 2000 to 2010. There's a significant improvement in our internet.
Up until
You go from 2010 to 2020, and there is no change.
unless you happen to live in a city that has Google Fiber or something like that.
Unless let me clarify. Unless you live in one of the big cities with the really fast that they've installed the really fast internet for.
Right.
Yes, maybe. But even so, 10 years.
It's infrastructure.
10 years.
Infrastructure.
I mean.
Yeah. There's only so much
with
that
the
copper
program.
can do with electricity, and then that's the biggest part of the problem is the fact that anything going
I
over
should
a
have
copper
known you wouldn't
connection.
have had this on yours because you have a liable explanation for this.
Well, I do. I think it's because I understand it so well, and again, being tall since I was 16, like clothes not fitting right is just something.
Okay,
Well,
you've
you
accepted.
know what? That's going to happen.
You've accepted.
and I think because perhaps I had to learn about the infrastructure and how
get it.
internet is made to pass tests and things, and so I'm like, okay, I understand the limitations.
It's
there.
a lack of love in my character, which is why Kim doesn't come to the podcast. I understand that. I've accepted that now.
Yes, exactly what it is.
So it doesn't bother me that much.
I'm glad that you are aware of that primary flaw in your character. Altogether.
I am. Okay. Sugar buns.
Yes,
What
sugar
you-
buns.
What you got for number one?
My number one is any variant of this phrase, but it has always been done that way.
Okay. Yeah. Coming from a working world, from your
Makes me
Yeah.
insane at
Yeah.
any level. Working world, professional, personal, anything. Does not matter. Anything you can apply that phrase to that
Lack of
someone is saying,
ingenuity,
even if they're not
lack
using
of
the words.
initiative.
If they're not using the words, but we've always done it this way.
lack of independent thinking is all that states.
I'm starting to realize that there are so many of my top 5 that are just a lack of independent thinking and people who just follow the sheeple herd, and that makes me nuts. That's
Yeah.
why we're friends, I think, is because you don't do that at all. And
No.
I really appreciate it. Just
Thank you.
Thank you. I love you, man.
Oh.
So that is, especially working in cybersecurity,
Right.
with it, which is such a dynamic field and changes every day, which
Yeah.
is part of the reason
It
I
is-
got into the career in the first
Yeah.
place, so I would never be bored because
It's
of the same
constant
old
change.
thing. I
Yeah,
constantly
you
have to adjust
constantly
and
have
learn.
to adjust. Yes.
People who just say, "Well, we've done it this way for 10 years. I don't see why it's a problem now."
That's exactly the reason why.
Exactly, and that was my argument and my rebuttal yesterday in a team meeting that we had, is that my job did not even exist 10 years ago.
Yeah.
How can that possibly apply what you are saying, that it has been there for 10 years, when cybersecurity just in general existed 10 years ago, but not to the point it isn't. It's entirely different now.
My job's entirely different. I was just talking to my old boss about this from 10 years ago, back when I think she was my
When
boss.
the internet was blazing fast.
When the internet was still the same. That our method of how we went about doing things has drastically changed.
What do you mean?
How we've trained. How we
Oh,
train,
in
how
the
we
past
set
10 years,
classes,
you
how
mean.
we utilize so much more technology than we ever. I mean, obviously during the pandemic, everything's had to be virtual, but even before that, we were still doing cutting edge stuff. There's no way I had all this stuff back then. We were writing stuff up on pens and papers, and the big giant Post-it note thing. That's where your sign was for your class.
Wow.
And I still have my
I
original
remember training like that. Yeah.
I still have my original poster board that I would use for every class I have. It's there. So if I just got to flip to the class.
It's still there?
I stopped adding times to it because every time I added time, I had to rip it off and write a new time. I'm like, hey, if I don't write the time on this
Then
class,
I can reuse this.
then I can reuse this. And I still have it.
Like-
I haven't thrown it away yet,
Wow.
obviously, but
You're
we're
like
never
SpaceX.
going.
You just keep using the same booster rocket. I got this.
Well, I have the same examples written on it, and obviously I used it a few years ago because I had it out for one of my early classes in 2020, and I think I know why. I had it out because it already has the diagrams on it and everything. I already drew those out years ago, so I just used those again. I would never use that now, though.
Why?
You know, you'd use PowerPoint slides on a projector on a laptop because you can do laser point and do where it is, or do little arrow cursors to point out certain
That's true.
topics of
That
information.
at least
I had
tends
go-
to hold people's attention a bit more.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, I used to do sheet and paper for my examples, and
Just 10 years ago.
yeah,
But
but
10
that was everything.
freaking years ago.
You've expanded because we don't think like, well, that's the way it's always been done.
Right.
We never
Oh,
think
a
that
lot
way.
of people do that.
I mean, there's
So
still a
many
few
do
people
that.
that say, why this, why this,
Of
why
course.
this
Well, I mean,
change.
look, there's
But that's going to happen. Resistant. I mean, shoot, I'm resistant to change.
we
at
all are.
times.
That's human nature. Totally,
Yeah.
we cling to the things that make us happy. We push away against things that are different. That's totally human nature, and I accept that.
But I
I'm
understand
talking
what you're
about
saying. No, I understand what you're saying.
people who use it as a crutch and or excuse and or have just never even considered it,
Mm-hmm.
and makes me crazy.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's maybe I shouldn't let it bother me so much, because now as I'm saying this to you, I realize that it has become a good barometer for me to choose my friends with, because I feel like the more people who think outside the box or at least challenge
Right.
things, I'm much more attracted to and interested in general.
I had a friend, Philip. He came over a couple of times back in the
Yeah,
day.
I remember Philip.
And
Yeah.
Philip was another.
I immediately
free-thinking
liked him.
outside- Oh, you
Yeah.
automatically love this dude because we automatically clicked the moment we met. We clicked. I met him on auditions and kind of just got the gist of him.
Sure.
He's an outside the box. He wants to be around positive people. I'm sure he said this around you too. But if you're positive, he wants to be around you because he needs to be around positive people. And it's always explore. It's interesting. If someone has a different thought process than you, it's not like you're wrong, I'm right. It's more like, oh, tell me why you think that way. It's more inquisitive and everything. And I just love that about him. And we were in a show together. And I was
Hilarious.
I was tabbed to be the star because I was a known name.
You were a known
I was a
entity.
known name.
Yes.
Well, just known that I'd been there. He was a newcomer. You don't
Yeah,
put
it was
a
his
newcomer.
very first. He just
It
moved
was
to
his very
town.
first
Yeah.
show, and they didn't want him to do it because, and I understand why, but they said, hey. Because
I mean, you gotta sell
don't put the
tickets.
new guy,
Right.
Well, because what if he does a good audition, but he can't, can't act when the time comes.
It's hard to trust that.
And the director was kind of cross because they were basically saying, it's going to be mad. It's going to be mad. Just want you to know that. And so the director called me and said, she's like, I'm really torn here. Do you want the lead? I mean, if you want the lead, that sells it for me. I'm happy giving you the lead. But I said, well, what do you think about this guy? Well, she said, well, I really thought he did well, but they're right. I don't know him. I said, well, I think he did well too. And I want to give him a shot. Because we talk about seeing new faces up there and new names.
Yeah.
That's great. And I said, so I think we should give him a shot. She went, you think so? I said, yeah. Are you fine with that? I said, oh, yeah. Just tell him, say, Matt doesn't want the lead because it's true. I never want to be the
want
lead.
the lead, right?
I never want the lead. And I was afraid because I really didn't want the lead. And I was afraid they were going to make me take it. And I was going to just say, well, he said he'd quit the show if you gave him the lead. I said, just say whatever. I'll back you up on it too.
Wow.
I said, but make Philip the lead. And they did. And it turned out to be, he was fantastic.
He was.
He's fantastic. But he's just a fantastic person. So
That's cool.
that's the type of people that,
Yeah.
that's why I was going to get to where you and I and him would hang out a lot. But then
Yeah, he moved.
he was
Again.
a little bit of more free-spirited than even I knew.
I see.
He was always free-spirited, but he basically just, he
really
went to a retreat,
embraced it.
quit his job because he loved this, Zen retreat so much.
Really?
And went to be a janitor.
So talk
for
about
them.
embracing change of all forms. Then
Oh, he happily embraced. I said, what
That's
happens
cool.
if you wouldn't have gotten a job? He went, I just know that's what I'm destined to be, is be a teacher at that camp. He said, I want to be one of those people.
See,
he was
I
just
love
so
that.
attracted to
I
that kind of
love
stuff.
that. How could you
and
not-
So
how could
gave up
anyone
a
not be
well-paying
interested in that?
job, and because we had similar jobs in the profession.
Okay.
Which was another reason why we clicked. But just decided that was, It wasn't about moving up in a career. It was doing what he. I mean, I definitely respect that and everything, but hurt my feelings because I don't like my good friends like that going away.
Sure.
And B, I never heard from him again, jerk. I mean, he probably threw away his phone too because I don't think you're supposed to have phones at the encampment. But either way, though, I miss that guy a lot. But that's what you're saying, like, you know, surround yourself with positive friends. We've talked about this before.
Yes. And to do that, you have to.
Anyway, I don't want to get all.
No, that's another podcast.
That's a totally different thing.
But either way, there we have our top 5 pet peeves. Obviously, because this one's going double the time here. We're hitting the hour mark.
Are we?
Yes, we are easily.
I thought that would be the case.
It would be the case on this.
I also predicted a little bit of the irritability in both of us. I figured that would happen.
It's natural.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this because I love sociology and human behavior. I love it. I think it's amazing. And just because I'm so aware of a lot of my top 5 that are just people not paying attention to anything and just going through the motions, I'm so very aware of things like that. And I'm fascinated by it. I'm not saying I'm perfect at all. I love it. And so I would be thrilled to read other people's comments about what theirs are.
I was about to say, I want people to put in what their pet peeves are. And I mean, whatever. I mean, it may be something minute. You say, well, I don't like when there's dust on the lampstand or something.
Anything.
I mean, anything like that would be interesting. I mean, if you say, I don't like it when a podcast goes an hour. That's one of my pet peeves. Maybe it is one of your pet peeves. I'd love to hear that too, because why'd you sit through
Which
this?
Which ones are your pets? Which peeves are your pets? Not the ghost in Hogwarts, not peeves.
Yes, not
We're
peeves,
talking about pet peeves.
Yeah.
So, which in a way, I guess Hogwarts, that was their pet peeve. Was
is the Griffin eating your innards because you gave him dog food? What is your pet peeve?
Happens to me every Wednesday. I hate it.
Yes. Is it that opening the box to the future goes absolutely nowhere in the story?
Oh, man.
What is the...
I really hope we find out more about that one Saturday.
Morning.
Samoflange.